Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Umar Khalid. But today is the 4th of January 2022, and these are the stories that we'll be discussing during the course of the show. We'll begin, ladies and gentlemen, with the news from the nuclear front. That is, 5 global nuclear powers that have pledged to prevent atomic weapons from spreading and to ensure a nuclear war is never fought. This is a rare joint statement which is ahead of a review of a key nuclear treaty later this year. This statement has come out from the United States, United Kingdom, Russia, China and France, who are members of the United Nations Security Council, and they are permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. How important is this as far as nuclear safety, nuclear security across the world is concerned? At the same time, there has been also a rejoinder by China that says that it will continue to modernize its nuclear arsenal for reliability and security reasons. We will try to understand where that perspective comes from and how important is it for the world bodies and the important countries that are part of this world body, that is the United Nations Security Council, to take care of their nuclear arsenal. Our second story of the day, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the Indian police that have registered cases after an app shared photographs of more than 100 Muslim women, putting them up for an online auction. Now, the accused include developers of the app and Twitter handles that shared the images and content, according to a BBC report that was published on Monday. This open source app is known as Bullibai and was hosted on the web platform GitHub, which has since taken it down. And finally, we'll be talking about Emma Watson. Emma Watson, we know, is not only an actress but has worked with the United Nations on different fronts. Now, she has taken out a very, very important statement as far as what is happening in Palestine is concerned. She has voiced solidarity with the pro-Palestinian activism on social media, and this has angered a lot of Israelis. On the other hand, it has also had the support of a lot of pro-Palestinians and Palestinians from across the world. This is going to be our last story. Let's begin with our first segment, ladies and gentlemen, nuclear security and nuclear safety across the world. Now, in a rare joint statement that has come from the 5 important countries, they have said that they are going to pledge that a nuclear war is never fought, and they are going to prevent atomic weapons from spreading. More in the following report.
With strenuous challenges such as COVID-19, economic meltdown, conflict and hunger, the resurgence of great power competition and ensuing arms race exhibits dangerous dynamics in international politics. Marking glimmer of hope, world's big guns have pledged to prevent nuclear war by conceding that nuclear war cannot be won and must never be fought. In a rare development, China, France, Russia, the UK and the US jointly issued a statement urging to prevent proliferation of nuclear weapons to mitigate prospects of nuclear war. The permanent 5 members of the UN Security Council affirmed to reduce existing nuclear arsenal for serving only defensive purposes, deterring aggression and preventing war. The joint pledge was issued ahead of what was to be the latest review of the Treaty of Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, which is an international agreement designed to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons and weapons of technology, while seeking to achieve complete nuclear disarmament. Chinese Foreign Minister Ma Zhaoshu hailed the joint agreement by hoping that it will help increase mutual trust and replace competition among major powers with coordination and cooperation. Russian Foreign Ministry stated that we hope that in the current difficult conditions of international security, the approval of such a political statement will help reduce the level of international tensions. The world's nuclear superpowers bear a unique responsibility to keep the peace and discourage brinkmanship, and the challenge is to find an acceptable balance between cooperation and competition.
To discuss this very important issue, we've been first of all joined by Sitara Noor. She's a research fellow at CAS and an expert on nuclear affairs. Sitara, thank you very much to have joined us. Our second guest for today is Syed Muhammad Ali. He's a Director of Strategic Affairs at CAS. Thank you very much, Ali, to have joined us as well. Let's begin with Sitara, of course. Sitara, tell me a little bit about your point of view on this important pledge that has been made by these 5 important countries. Do you feel it is important or not? Do you feel this is going to go forward as a very, very important milestone as far as nuclear safety and security is concerned?
Thank you for having me on the show. As you rightly pointed out in the initial package, that this is important and significant in a number of ways, but definitely we need to see this in historical perspective, because you see there is a lot of pressure on the P5 states to continue their pledge and go about some nuclear disarmament pledges that they have taken at various forums, but there is no development on that front, essentially. So in that retrospective manner, if we look at how these states have actually carried out their statements, there is definitely not much that has happened upfront. But still, there is a number of ways to look at it, because as we all know that the NPT review conference has been postponed since 2020 because of the COVID situation and primarily because of the COVID related issues. So this conference was all set to happen January this year, and all countries were actually looking forward to it. But because of COVID again, this has not happened, and the parties to the NPT has refused to do a virtual session. Primarily because they were like, there are certain issues that need to be discussed in physical form. But should we read so much into it? I think not. But there are two things which are important. First of all, UK and France had actually agreed to become part of this statement, which they were originally resisting. UK, US, Russia, and China were on this front, but UK and France were kind of resisting becoming part of this statement. So this is significant with regards to that. And I think reference to the Gorbachev and Reagan statement that nuclear wars are not to be won, and then that's why this definitely should not be fought, is also important reference to that statement, because this is the reaffirmation of the pledge that was originally taken. And I think the pressure comes from the Stockholm Initiative as well, the nuclear risk reduction working paper that was sponsored by various the NPT member states earlier past year, in the middle past year, which had actually talked about taking certain measures, certain declaratory statements. So I see that statement in response to that Stockholm Initiative or the nuclear risk reduction working paper, which specifically calls on the nuclear weapon states to issue statements in effect calling out the dangers of nuclear weapons.
The statement, nevertheless, being
disarmament.
important, Sitara, I understand that it needs to be seen how important it is in the coming days. Syed Muhammad Ali, Director of Strategic Affairs, CAS, coming to you, when it concerns these 5 important countries, as Sitara has pointed out, that 2 of the countries were reluctant but now have joined that pledge as far as nuclear safety and security is concerned. At the same time, China also says the pledge will increase mutual trust and reduce the risk of nuclear conflict. On the other hand, it says it will continue to modernize its nuclear arsenal for reliability and security reasons. How do you gauge these 2 statements?
Thank you. Always a pleasure to join you on the show, and also my wonderful colleague Sitara as well. Great to have her here. I think to put things into context and to simplify these things, I think there are 4 aspects that need to be understood in the context of this statement. First is the political aspect. The second is the moral aspect. The third is the technological aspect. And fourth is the strategic aspect. So first off, when you talk about these 5 major powers who are the permanent members of the United Nations Security Council, this indicates that they are willing to, they are sensitive to the commitments that they have made as part of several treaties, but in particular, the linchpin, which is the Non-Proliferation Treaty, and you see a reference to the Article 6 commitment, particularly regarding the disarmament commitment. The second is the moral aspect, because they are cognizant of the growing criticism from the disarmament lobby and also from the non-nuclear weapon states, which are mounting the pressure, and also the recent debate related to the nuclear ban treaty, which all these 5 countries oppose. So this is a reflection of their realization that they are not fulfilling the commitment that they made according to the NPT. However, what is really smartly framed is the linkage between the growing arsenals and the safety and security or the reliability of their arsenal. It is very interesting because
there's some kind of a technical issue. I can't hear you properly, Ali. Till such time, let's revert to Sitara. Sitara, when it comes to nuclear stockpiles or, of course, nuclear energy plants, not related really to nuclear weapons, but when we talk of this aspect as well, we hear Germany shutting down half of its remaining nuclear plants. Of course, it is after the Fukushima nuclear accident that Germany has announced this. Do you also feel this is part of another step in the right direction as far as nuclear safety is concerned?
You see,
Umar, okay, for Sitara, go ahead, Sitara.
yes.
All right,
So,
I'll come to Sitara, then I'll come back to you, Ali, and we'll resume what we were saying. Yes,
yes,
Sitara.
Umar, so you see, sensitivities of different countries with regards to nuclear safety and security are different and varying within the Europe as well. I mean, for instance, if you look at soon after Fukushima, Italy was the first country who had phased out all their nuclear power plants. Germany announced to phase out its nuclear power plants by 2022, and the recent on this Friday, past Friday, they had announced to shut down 3 of the remaining 6 nuclear power plants for the energy purposes. But France, on the other hand, almost 60% of the energy of France comes from the nuclear resources. So there is a varying perspective within Europe as well and across the globe as well. So the countries who are leading the phasing out include Switzerland, Germany, Spain, Italy, as I mentioned. So there are diverse views on that. So we cannot really say that it ultimately solves the safety issues, because if as long as countries are following the principles and the code of conduct and the guidelines issued by the IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency, then definitely within that framework, nuclear energy remains one of the primary source that provides carbon without the carbon emissions. That's the safest and the cleanest source of energy that the countries have. And that is why you see there is a lot of interest in the nuclear energy by in the US, renewed interest by the US. Then we are looking at, there are new nuclear power plants coming up in Middle East, specifically in Bangladesh. Pakistan is significantly developing more and more and envisioning more reliance on the nuclear energy. So from safety point of view, I think as long as states are, continuing and following the guidelines by the IAEA, this remains a safe option and this remains the cleanest option that is available, considering how significant the climate change effects are, the fossil fuels are affecting the climate.
And that remains to be gauged as well. Ali, what's your take on that? But Sitara just said, and then I'd like you to enhance the other 2 points that we weren't able to decipher.
I think since your time is limited, I'll briefly and try to simply explain this nuclear politics. In my view, actually, the reference to safety and security is part of their policy to justify the buildup of arsenal. Because this joint statement, Umar, is primarily focused not on safety and security, but on the in order to address the growing concerns that why are these 5 countries building up their nuclear arsenals, and why are they violating the commitment that they have made according to NPT. So when you talk about Germany and other countries which are non-nuclear weapon states, as per their NPT treaty commitment, they are actually having the best of both worlds, because they are enjoying the extended nuclear deterrence from NATO, and also benefiting from the peaceful uses of nuclear energy. So that is something that countries like Pakistan considered a discriminatory politics in order to monopolize the peaceful uses of nuclear energy for other countries. However, on the strategic side, it is very important for us to highlight that the major 5 countries continue to not fulfill their obligation according to NPT, which calls upon them for nuclear disarmament. And that context, any justification, including that of safety and security, is not convincing enough. However, it is very important for scholars from Pakistan to highlight that the disproportionate focus of safety and security, and also the growing arsenals of newer and recent countries like Pakistan need a review, because the size of nuclear arsenals of these 5 countries are much bigger than that of Pakistan, and also the safety security issues that we have recently witnessed in India are much more frequent
Of course.
and deserve greater reflection and focus of the international community.
And you've also seen, Ali, recently the sale of uranium that was prohibited at 2 different points in India in the last few months. And this causes a huge concern. Now, let's come back to what these 5 countries are considering their primary responsibility as far as that statement is concerned. There are 2 important points. First, to avoid war between the nuclear states and reduce strategic risks. And second, to work with all countries to create an atmosphere of security. What is your take on these 2 statements? Are these 2 statements, how should I say, important in the current geostrategic context?
I think nuclear security and the credibility and lasting role of deterrence are very important. And I think it is a welcome aspect of this statement because it is very important to emphasize that the nuclear weapons are primarily their primary role is to prevent war. So Pakistan's long-standing stance has been that these are weapons of peace, not for war. These are meant to prevent war and to preserve peace. And if this thought and this wisdom is also shared by the international community, then that's a positive sign. However, in terms of nuclear security, I think Pakistan, as part of the Nuclear Security Summit process, had a good opportunity to showcase its impeccable and flawless security regime and commitments that it has demonstrated. But it is also important that a similar record and behavior is not witnessed in our eastern neighbor. So it is very important for international community to have a fair, unbiased, and dispassionate look at the poor and irresponsible nuclear behavior of India and appreciate and recognize on merit Pakistan's impeccable record and behavior. Thank you.
All right. Now, Sitara, what's your take on these 2 points? I've heard, Ali, what do you feel? How important are these 2 points, avoiding war between nuclear states and creating an atmosphere of security? Do you feel these can be applicable in this current geostrategic context?
You see, Omar, I largely see this statement more of as a deflection strategy in terms of because as Ali rightly pointed out earlier that because of a humanitarian initiative and various other initiatives in the European continent and the public pressure throughout the world, there was these P5 states were feeling the pressure and feeling the heat to show some commitment in that regard, and this statement is essentially a response to that pressure. And since NPT review conference was not taking place, so they definitely had to put something on the table as to allay the concerns of the global community. But you see the Chinese statement, and if we look at the ground reality, you see the 90% of the weapon system or the weapons arsenals are in the hands of the US and Soviet, the Russian Federation, right? More than 6,000 nuclear warheads that Russia and the US possess respectively. So the larger responsibility lies on them. And the statement from China also re-emphasizing on the fact that they would continue the modernization also alludes to that growing competition at the geostrategic level, which you also referred to. So probably on ground, we would not see much of a change in terms of the nuclear policy or the nuclear doctrines of the country, because China, notwithstanding the fact it is modernizing its weapon system, also emphasizing that its commitment to minimum credible deterrence remains the same. So that's also, that this is how they try to look at it. And they also made reference to the geostrategic environment. And that also indicates that perhaps the growing competition in the Indo-Pacific and the growing competition between the US and China at one side and then US and Russia on the other hand would actually dominate the global politics when it comes to the nuclear policy and nuclear disarmament debates when it comes to that. So we essentially, I do not really see it's a watershed moment per se, but it's also, as I said in the beginning, it's at least important in the sense that they have reaffirmed their commitment to the Article 6 of the NPT, which had long, kind of gone down into the history and there was no development. But certainly, having said that, I do not see any major development coming out of this statement. But notwithstanding, it remains important.
All right. Ali, when it comes to tensions in the region, as Sitara has also pointed out, between China and the US and China and Russia, let's come to US and Russia. And of course, we know that it is Ukraine that is the center of the tension between the two. Now, Russia says it hopes the pledge will reduce world tensions, says the summit of permanent UN Security Council members remains necessary. At the same time, we know that Joe Biden has told the Ukrainian president the US will respond decisively if Russia further invades. We know there are a number of troops from the Russian side on the border between Ukraine and Russia. How do you see all of that from a nuclear and a geostrategic perspective? Do you feel when, on the one hand, these major powers say they will not use a nuclear arsenal in any way whatsoever, do you feel this could be a possibility in case some kind of war-like situation erupts between Russia, Ukraine, or the US and Russia?
A very important question, Umar. My brief answers has two parts. First off, I hope that all the nuclear armed states fulfill their commitment that they consider their nuclear arsenals as a deterrence rather than a weapon of war. That is very important. And that is the most important aspect which I think the international community needs to appreciate in this joint statement as well. However, what are the ground realities and the technological facts? The facts on ground, Umar, are that Russia has a 6 times bigger nuclear arsenal than China. But interestingly, most of the Western debate on nuclear buildup primarily focuses on China rather than Russia. And very interesting statement was issued by Chinese government recently, which said that the Chinese nuclear arsenal is overestimated by the West in order to justify their own buildup. And improvement both in terms of quality and quantity of their arsenals. So in reality, the US nuclear arsenal is the dominant one, and it is spread across seas of the world. It is deployed, dispersed, continuously being improved. Whereas in reality, Russia is the closest, and Sitara also pointed out that Russian and American nuclear arsenal, only these two countries have more than 90% of the total nuclear weapons around the world. And when we talk about France and Russia and China and Britain, they have much smaller arsenals. And in case of Pakistan and India as well, the arsenal are much more modest. But that is the most important point on which I want to conclude and share with your audience, that the debate disproportionately focuses on China and Pakistan. And I think it overlooks the reality that US continues to maintain the most advanced, widely dispersed nuclear arsenal, followed by Russia. And both these countries have yet to fulfill their disarmament commitments. Whereas the debate mostly focuses on the concern regarding China or Pakistan. So it is very important for the international community in particular, but also for our scholars and our international media to focus more on the feverish nuclear buildup of India, and also the lack of commitment by those major powers which have not fulfilled the Article 6 NPT commitment despite almost 55 years of being passed. So these are the two most important things that deserve adequate attention from media, think tanks, and international community.
Thank you very much, Syed Muhammad Ali, Director of Strategic Affairs, CAS, to have joined us. And thank you very much, Sitara Noor, Research Fellow from CAS and a nuclear expert, to have joined us on this very important statement that has emanated from the 5 important permanent United Nations Security Council countries. Let's hope this leads to a more stable world as far as the nuclear arsenal is concerned. Nevertheless, as both of my guests have pointed out, there needs to be a certain balance as far as the statements issued and as far as the pinpointing of a nuclear arsenal is concerned. Let's come to our last 2 segments, ladies and gentlemen, very quickly. The first concerns India, where of course, there has been a huge hue and cry because the Indian police have registered cases after an application that was available online online showed photographs of more than 100 Muslim women that and it said it was putting them up for sale, for an online auction, so as to say. We've seen that in the past in the Hindu, how should I say, dynasty, or in the Hindu Ramayana, or it's part of the Hindu maybe history as well. Nevertheless, to take a whole different route and put on Muslim women on sale online brings to perspective the way they are treating not only the women but also the minorities, especially the Muslim women. The accused include developers of the application and Twitter handles that shared these images and content, and this was highlighted in a report by the British Broadcasting Corporation, the BBC, on Monday. The open source app, which is known as Bullyby, was hosted on the web platform GitHub. It has since taken it down. Nevertheless, the police are feverishly searching for those who were behind this, and we don't know how it is all going to go forward. Nevertheless, it paints a very, very dark and black image as to where the society in India is moving along, especially when we see auctions of women going on, especially of minorities, that is Muslim. And finally, let's go to the Palestinian cause, and let's go to Emma Watson. Now, Emma Watson, we all know, is an actress who's worked in the Harry Potter series. She also is a very prolific figure as far as talking about human rights is concerned. She's talked from the Forum of the United Nations as well in the past. Now, what she has done, she has posted a post which shows solidarity with the pro-Palestinian activism on social media, which elicited backlash, of course, from current and former Israeli officials and praise from the pro-Palestinian social media users. Israel's UN envoy, for example, Gilad Erdan, strongly criticized her post, lashing out on the star. He said, fiction may work in Harry Potter, but it does not work in reality. Another Israeli envoy to the United Nations, Danny Donan, also mentioned her and talked about and he said that this was in fact an anti-Semite accusation that had been put by Emma Watson. Nevertheless, on the other hand, there have been a lot of supporters and from the Palestinian side, from across the world, who have really gone behind Emma Watson and have showed solidarity with what she posted on Twitter. So I'll leave the rest on to you to judge who's right or who's wrong. We here are just giving you facts and figures. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with news stories and segments that concern you in Pakistan. Stay safe, get yourselves vaccinated, follow the SOPs. Allah Hafiz.